Hello everyone, today I'm going to introduce you to how to perform calculations in R and RStudio. R is a free mathematical software used by a wide variety of professionals. It can be used to analyze trends, generate graphs, and make predictive models. Coding in R is a skill that will make you stand out in the job market, but unfortunately getting started can be the hardest part. So I'm going to take you through some of the basics. So here I'm going to open up R. R can be used as a calculator, really, if that's all you want to do with it. So you can see my cursor here in the corner, and it's blinking, just waiting for me to do something. So to use it as a calculator, to add things together, I can just do the plus symbol, and then hit either enter or return, whatever's on your keyboard, and then it spits out the answer. To subtract things, I can use the dash, hit enter. To multiply things, I can do the little star symbol. And to divide things, I can use the slash. So that's how you do just the basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. If you're dealing with issues of needing things done in order of operation, or if you need to denote order of operation, you can use these parentheses. So if I just hit just the parentheses for one side, then it'll automatically generate the parentheses to close it. That way I know that I have the right number to open and close the parentheses, otherwise R gets confused. So I can say an addition term in there, and then a multiplication term out here, and then say enter, and then it adds first and then multiplies. So another great thing that R can do is you can name objects, and this helps out a lot if you're keeping track of a whole bunch of different variables or a bunch of different equations. So very easily I can just say x equals 5 and then hit enter, and you see nothing really happens there because all I'm doing is naming something. I'm saying I've made this item x and I want it to be equal to the number 5. So then if later on I want to recall it and say x, what does x mean? Then it'll spit out the answer. Now note I used a capital X here. If I use a lowercase x and then tell it to go, it says object X not found. So everything is case sensitive. So remember to capitalize the letters that you capitalized beforehand. In addition to having things equal to individual numbers, I can have things equal to equations. So I can say y is equal to 6 plus 8. And say enter. And now again, notice nothing really happened after I did that, but if I asked for it to tell me what y is, then it'll give me the answer to that previous equation. And then I can add or subtract or do whatever I want to do with my two variables. So I can say I want to know what y divided by x is, hit enter, and then it gives me the answer of the number that y generates divided by the number that x generates. You don't have to use variables like this. You can name things anything. So I can name this bubbles and say bubbles is equal to 9 times 10, and then just recall bubbles, and there it is. Another thing some people use instead of an equal sign is they'll use a less than sign and a dash, so it looks like a little arrow. So I can say wind is arrow pointing to wind is equal to 12 minus 8. And say enter, and then I can recall wind, and there it gives me the answer to that. So moving now from R to RStudio, I can just exit out of this. I'm going to say don't save for there. Now opening up RStudio, and this is what we see when we open RStudio. I'm just going to clear this global environment just so that nothing's on there. So you can see a console very similar to what we saw in regular R, except now there's also this global environment and then this files and plots. So if I want to pick a file from one of my folders, I can very easily hit files here and then find it in my documents or Dropbox or wherever I have it stored. And then I can set as a working directory, which makes it really easy to use different files and figure out what you're doing. Then if I come up here to the top, so I can use this space just the same way I did before, so 3 plus 4 equals 7, all that other stuff. But to make it a little easier so that I can go back and see what I've done before, I can hit this little icon up here, this little plus sign with the piece of paper, and say I want to open a new R script. So now you see this is opening a new item here. And so up here I can say 7 times 3. And if I hit enter, nothing happens. Nothing happens down here in the console. Nothing really happens up here except that's there. To run this, to find out what 7 times 3 is, I have to come over here to this little icon right here that says run. And as long as my cursor is in this line, it will run that. And so now you see it pops out down here. But up here, this stays the same. So if you're writing a lot of crazy code or complicated things, or especially when you're getting into modeling, if you maybe misname something, you've got sort of a clean slate up here, and then all your other stuff can be messy down here. And in this, I can do everything that I did before. I can name things. I can name things like that, and then hit enter and say, maybe I want to now say finger times 10. Notice I haven't actually done anything down here yet, but what I can do now that I've written these things out is then I can highlight both of these lines and hit run. And then it'll run them both at the exact same time, so I get that answer. And then if you look over here, you can see in my environment, now it tells me I have this thing that I've called finger that is equal to the number 5. So that's really, really helpful for keeping track of all of your variables and all the things that you've named. And you can name anything, remember. You can say anything is equal to any sort of complicated process that could be extra crazy, and it's all fine because R will just remember what those things are. So now I've got this item called game that now is equal to that, and so I can say finger times game, and that will work. Excellent. So that's just a very brief overview of the things that R can do. Understanding these basics will make learning how to run more complicated codes much easier, and I hope this was helpful to you.